What happens with ADHD coaching, the shame, the guilt, the noise of, is it me? Is it my ADHD? I can't figure this out. All of that gets subsided. And it's through those little bits that they're like, I figured myself out finally. But it's to do it on your own. You sit in constant rumination and catastrophization, and you're sitting there doing it on your own. And my belief, wholehearted, and I want to tattoo this somewhere on my body to be like, don't do ADHD alone. I've always said that. If you have a neurodivergent brain, you need to have a thinking partner. But at the right time, at the right place, so that you can keep progressing and then coming back again if you need to.
Welcome to Successful with ADHD. I'm Brooke Schnittman. Let's get started. Welcome back to a very special episode of Successful with ADHD. Today I have my great friend and colleague and someone I've worked very closely with over the past 6 years, Cathy Rashidian. She's a certified executive coach who specializes in ADHD in the workplace, combining over 20 years of leadership experience with her personal ADHD journey. Her coaching merges traditional techniques with ADHD-specific strategies, empowering clients to unlock their full potential in their career. Cathy holds credentials from the Internal Coach Federation, the ICF, which is the gold standard of coaching, my friends, and the Professional Association of ADHD Coaches, also known as PAAC. And Cathy also shines as a lead trainer at ADD Coach Academy, also known as ADCA, shaping future ADHD coaches. She hosts the Proudly ADHD at Work podcast and is noted speaker on neurodiversity in the workplace, providing insightful solutions for managing ADHD. I can breathe.
Take a breath.
Cathy's expertise. Cathy's expertise supports organizations in crafting bespoke coaching programs for employees with ADHD. Very warm welcome. And I'm so glad that you put all that in your bio, because today we are going to be talking about all the nuances of the wild, wild west coaching industry that is. I just read a report that in 2019 to 2023, there was a 60% uptake in coaching. And then in 2024, compared to 2023, there's a projected 20,000 more coaches, which totals 145,000 plus. But in my personal opinion, I bet you there's more out there that aren't certified or don't have the credentials and aren't registered as coaches. So this coaching industry has really taken off as a boom. And I am thrilled to have Cathy here today, because Cathy worked for Coaching with Brooke as part of just like a contractor position while she was also doing her own ADHD coaching company. So I trust her invaluably. I don't know if that's a word, because I know how she coaches. I've observed her coach. I know the impact that she creates on teams, on leaders, on other ADHDers. And she's done the work. She's experienced it as an ADHDer and has worked with hundreds of clients. So Cathy, real quick, just so people understand your journey, take us through when you got the ADHD diagnosis and when you became a coach.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. When did I become a coach? One could say that I was always wearing the coaching hat because I had different leadership roles in the 20 years that I was in corporate Canada. So, but it wasn't until I got my diagnosis in 2018 that my whole career made sense. The part about my career that was around leadership even made that much more sense because for me, I'm a natural kind of leader at heart. Not the type of leader that tells you what to do, but the type of leader that says we're walking home together. Yeah. So it made sense for me. And I chose the coaching path because it was time. It was like, you know, I've done this other tech stuff, the marketing stuff for 20 years. Now that I know how my brain works, I want to be more intentional about it. So I took the strength that I had and amplified it, which was coaching, and went down the rabbit hole of training. And the more I learned about the art of coaching, the more it was like, oh my God, every people manager, frontline staff, everybody should learn the true art of coaching. And coaching isn't something that was like, you know, God fancy or trendy. Well, maybe it is nowadays, but it's been around for a long time. And it's been around and it's been done effectively for a long time. There's a lot of research on the effectiveness side of coaching, especially in our community, in our ADHD community. There's papers on it, therapists that talk about it. So it works, but it works when the person does it with integrity, with high ethics, with high standards. That's why I love working with you, and I still love working with you. It's you come from those high values. And it's important to keep that in mind when we come in and say, hi, I'm an ADHD coach. Hi, I'm an executive coach. It comes with a lot of responsibility and not to be taken lightly.
Yeah. So you're saying that basically, like, you can't just have integrity by saying one day you're a coach and start coaching people?
No. And, Brooke, I could have done that, right? I could have been like, hey, there's this cool gig I saw. What inspired me to go down the path of coaching was, and I don't think I've ever shared it with anybody else, Jessica McCabe's video on how to ADHD. She was interviewing, there's this old episode. She was interviewing a coach in Canada, and the way he explained his journey, it was like, holy cow, it's the male version of me, same background. He had a marketing background. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, this is a thing, but let me go down the rabbit hole and do it properly. So
yes,
call it perfectionism is, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it
the right way,
deep and wide and like in depth. And I want to know all the things. So going down the rabbit hole for me, it was important that I do it with the right tools. And I also went down the path of, should I become a psychologist, a counselor? What does that look like? This is people's brains. This is mental health. As much as we say we're life coaches, within the realm of ADHD coaching, you are dealing with mental health. You are dealing with neurodiversity that is, you could be sitting in front of someone who has bipolar, ADHD, and autism, all three all at once.
Completely complex.
Right? Yeah. And it's so complex. And to say you took a course on Udemy, no offense to Udemy, or you took a 3-month program and now you're a certified coach, I question that because the depth of continued learning that, like, I know one of your strengths is love of learning and constantly learning, right? Like the latest, do you have this version now? The very well?
No, I only have the ADHD version. One. Oh, right? I gotta get it.
Like there's always like a new thing coming out, a new research coming out that I'm always like, I gotta see this. I gotta see what happened here. What's the latest? What's the greatest? So it takes responsibility. And it's not to become this echo chamber of, oh, so-and-so is talking about RSD today. Let me create some content on RSD.
Correct. That's why, it's so funny. Speaking of content, right? So I guess since my Instagram following has grown over the past 3 years, we had the account for 6 years now, but the past 3 years it took off. Mm-hmm. People will say I'm an influencer, and I hate that term.
Yes.
For me, at least, because that's not what I pride myself on. I pride myself on giving value and impacting people. Doesn't mean that influencers don't do that, right? But I see myself as more than an influencer. I see myself as a coach that has transformed lives. So I don't want people coming to me and Coaching with Brooke just because they saw a great post on Instagram. I want them to come to Coaching with Brooke because of the experience and the value we provide to them over the term of their coaching. So it's interesting that you went there like RSD. Okay, here's a great post. Well, hey, guess what? ChatGPT can whip that out in 2 seconds too.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, absolutely. And, back to then what makes a good coach a good coach? I think first is having that responsibility of yourself, of knowing your boundaries, knowing when to say no. I say more no's in my discovery calls than I say yeses, because I hear, this one, it's more therapeutic lens, and I don't have the professional training to take you on as a client. And when you go through your therapy and do your trauma therapy work, then come back and we can do coaching. My parameters, my qualifiers to work on with a client are super rigid and specific, because then when you bring them together, magic happens. They do a few sessions with me and off to the races they go. So the idea of true coaching for me is being a thought partner, a thought facilitator. They come to us whole, complete, all resources are in there. We're holding that space for them to unlock it. And to think that some of these coaches that say, oh my gosh, I was watching this documentary that happened in Canada. The coach said, work with me for a few sessions and you won't have to take your depression medication. Mind blown. I was like, you did not
like
say
black
that.
does not equal white. Like, let's not oversimplify things.
Yeah, I mean, that's the extreme of it, right? And that's the extreme of it. And I see it time and time again, these young, impressionable coaches that come thinking, great, I have something to sell. I'm good at helping people. I'm good at giving advice. So I guess there's an industry called coaching. Let me go inside it. But then when you go inside it, you have to do your due diligence. You have to get your extensive training. And it's just, you're doing it the service. You're causing more damage than good. And also it's very short-lived. If you're in this for the long haul as a business owner, do it properly. If you wanted the short-lived, then you get, people coming after you going, bad reviews, this and that, then that's another way to do it. You'll make good money first, but then it's very short-lived.
I just want to kind of show the other piece of getting your training for ADHD coaching, because Cathy, I know you went through ADGA, you went through IPAC, you have very extensive training, you're mentoring ADGA students, you're in the premier coaches, right? You are a premier coach.
Thank you.
And
I wouldn't say that to myself, but okay, you can say it.
You are. You've coached me personally. I've seen you coach clients that have come in. I mean, I know what you do. So I believe in you.
Thank you.
And I will say that there, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with doing a 3-month program, as long as that's not your be all end all. Like, there's more to that 3-month program. Continue to grow. Like you said, continue to be a lifelong learner. Don't just put a label on yourself because you did that. It's funny. And I'm calling someone out. I'm not going to use their name, but I got a newsletter from a predominant ADHD figure who has the description ACC in training. I'm like, but like, how can you use those letters if you don't have them?
Like what in the hell does that even mean?
What does that mean?
And even saying ACC and it's associate coach certified in why would you even say that? That doesn't make sense. So to me, that's when it gets colorful marketing and it becomes fancy marketing. And I do not appreciate that. If you are a coach in training, say you're coach in training, and also indicate, is somebody supervising your work? Is somebody mentoring your work? One of the things that I am an ICF, International Coach Federation, champion, if you will. I do appreciate what they do because they hold high standards in coaching. They have documents on standards, ethics, the things you have to abide by. And I hold myself to that because we're not regulated. But here's an organization that says, these are the rules of the game. Can you play? If you play, here's your credentialing letters. And so in every level that you go through, when you get that credentialing, that means you kind of went through hell and back to get them. That means you had hundreds and hundreds of hours of training, continuous learning, supervision, all of that good stuff. You went through a school that was accredited by ICF. ICF doesn't take on any school just like that. They're bigger organizations. They put them through the ringer.
Yeah, my 3C activation program for coaches, that is ICF approved. I didn't get approved overnight.
That's right.
They needed a whole curriculum. They needed lots of documentation. I got lots of back and forth communication. They were very ethical. Again, it took months to get certified.
That's it. And I'm actually putting my program through that. And see, there's a difference. There's coach training that gives you the foundational, those schools. And then there's programs like Brooks has, or Brooke has, or I'm submitting mine to ICF, where we become the continuing education arms that continue to produce programs but at least we have a governing body that we like to go after and say, hi, this is what we do. And just even as a content or program creator, I appreciate if somebody goes, I went through your program with a fine tooth comb. Here's what you need to change. Here's what you need to do differently. To me, that feels good delivering that program.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure that's the same for you, Brooke, because you went through hell and back to get it through ICF. You deliver it with confidence, and your participants go, yeah, this makes sense.
This is exactly. I mean, you see the reviews, right? Like they're like, there's a lot of coaching programs out there. How do you stand behind one that makes sense and that you could stand behind ethically?
Yeah. Yeah. When our spidey senses kind of come up of, is this the right coach? Is this the right program? And I beg of the listeners here is please trust your spidey senses. If something is coming up, you got to investigate. Don't fall into the manipulation and, oh, you can get a mortgage, second mortgage to do my program and all of that. No. If it doesn't make sense now, it shouldn't. And you need to really do your due diligence.
Yeah, absolutely. And with ADHD, we can have that spidey sense really well. And also we can trust really hard too. So do your homework, speak to people that you value their opinion, see education background, ask for reviews. There's nothing wrong with going and having them give you a couple of people who have gone through the program and like look them up, find out what their experience was, why they came, learn from them too. Do your homework as much as it's hard to do that. It's funny that we're having this conversation, Cathy, because I just interviewed Jason Pfeiffer and his episode will probably drop before this episode comes out. And we talked about like, we can't oversimplify everything. Just because you're an ADHD coach or a coach doesn't mean that you're amazing, or just because you're an ADHD coach doesn't mean that you're bad or you're trying to take people's money. Just because you're an ADHD coach doesn't mean that you won't transform someone's life, right? Like there's so many things to think about, and it's easier to oversimplify good, bad, black, white, the program, do this and you'll no longer need to take your depression medication. That's terrible.
I know.
So, okay.
It's sad.
Yeah. So now with all of this being said, when they're already working with a coach, how do they know to continue, not to continue? If this is continuing to be the right fit, if the coach continues to show up for them, all of those things, how do they know that this continues to be a good fit for the client?
Oh, it's such a tricky question because, so let me give you the scenario that would be the ideal scenario. If somebody comes in, there's this thing that I do before I say yes to a client. I'm kind of looking for, are they in a state of dysfunction in their life or scenario? Or are they in a place of function, but there's hiccups, there's fine tuning that needs to be done. They've done some amazing things. And it's just like, there's a glitch in the matrix. And then they're in the optimal stage. So these three stages for me, when they come and I hear dysfunction, like I cannot get out of bed. It's been 2 weeks. My medications are not like a lot of like heavy stuff. This right there for me is therapy, through and through. Because when you're in that much dysfunction that you can't keep a job, you can't keep a roof over your head, no.
You're in chaos.
Yes. And something bigger resources need to be at play. So then when they come to me and they're like, look, I just got my promotion. Kids are in school doing great. I sit on the board of whatever. This new promotion, however, I want to make sure I'm doing my best with it. And I don't want to repeat past behaviors. Here's some things that I've done in the past that have, been to my detriment. Here are the things that I've done well. And we talk about that. So for me, that's a good match to be like, great. Here we have a scenario where I can become your thinking partner and we can work through what does the next 6 months look like for you in this new role, for example. Each coaching session for me is taking them towards that goal, the high level goal. And in each session, the way we work through is, okay, let's say delegation is an issue for them. We unpack delegation. They come back. They're like, wow, this happened. Oh, my team notices a difference in me. they start to see micro progress, not massive things. All of a sudden they're delegating everything and they've figured it out. But in each session, a little bit unpacks, a little bit unpacks. So what true coaching does is we hold that space so that they get through one little evidence of, look, you are a badass, you're doing it yourself. And as a coach, I'm co-piloting with them to be like, oh, there's a pothole. Do you want to go around it? Do you want to jump into it? Or do you just want to completely avoid and take another exit? So it's that critical thinking. The more they tap into their critical thinking, the more they're able to then see, I can do this. I remember how badass I was. This is why I got to here. And then, they regain that sense of self. But what happens with ADHD coaching, the shame, the guilt, the noise of, is it me? Is it my ADHD? I can't figure this out. All of that gets subsided. And it's through those little bits that they're like, I figured myself out finally. But it's to do it on your own. You sit in constant rumination and catastrophization. Yep. And Hallowell talks about this, right? The default mode network yeah, goes in full speed, and you're sitting there doing it on your own. And my belief, wholehearted, and I want to tattoo this somewhere on my body to be like, don't do ADHD alone. I've always said that. If you have a neurodivergent brain, you need to have a thinking partner. But at the right time, at the right place, so that you can keep progressing and then coming back again if you need to. Barbara Luther, one of our mentors, she's amazing. She says, we always talk ourselves out of a job. So essentially, ethical coaches that do their coaching at best, we will coach till they don't need us and they come back again. And it's not even about a need. I should say that. It's they come and go as needed to think things out loud and then go back out again. That was a long-winded answer, but I needed to unpack that.
No, it's so true. Like whenever I do a discovery call, I look for the things that you had mentioned, but I also share with clients or potential clients that this is not meant for life. This is meant to help you uncover all of your greatness, help you uncover your strengths, your weaknesses, your paths, like how to get out of your own way. Yes, you might need coaching down the road should circumstances change in your life or you feel you need a little boost. But this is not like tutoring, if you bring it back to childhood, where you're deficient in math. So I just need tutoring for however long. This is coaching to help you be your best version of yourself so you can show up differently, like you said.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is not meant for life. And some people love it and will do it for longer periods of time just because they want that thinking partner. And I know for you and I, like sometimes we check in with each other because
that's it.
We both, I think highly of you and thanks. And I want someone to like really help me in my verbal processing, discover what it is that I truly want. And could I do that with the tools on my own? Yes, because we've coached hundreds of people, but at the same time, it's nice because sometimes you could do it faster with someone else.
Yeah. And the difference I see in a highly trained, experienced coach versus one that, hi, I'm a coach, let's go. The difference in coaching style is the new coaches jump into the box. They are too quick to give advice. They come in with their assumptions. Where the more seasoned coach that has gone some training, that has had conversations with their supervisor, that has listened to their calls, they know where they begin and end in a conversation and can truly hold a container for them to do their own critical thinking.
Yes.
Those that haven't had enough training don't know how to do that. That it's a skill that you got to do it in practice with long-term classes or training to just continue to build it.
It's not consulting. It's not consulting.
It's not.
If you want,
absolutely.
If you're consulting, you should call yourself a consultant. I remember when I was going through, so I did my ADHD coaching and then I did my life coaching. So I got my ADHD training at JST coaching and then I did full-on life coaching through another program, CASC coaching. And I remember with the ADHD coaching, when I was training there, Jody said, who's the head of that, you have to keep, don't come to the conclusion for them. I know you know what the answer is, right? But you have to let them come to the answer. And then when I went to the life coaching program, I remember Melissa, who is in charge of that, said, it's not like, okay, you check in on this, good, check the box. Okay, check in on the next thing, check the box. It's an open conversation where you go deep, as you mentioned. And I know also, I'm going to put a caveat here. You and I, Cathy, even though we are coaches with an ADHD lens, we sometimes brainstorm with the client, right? We
Yeah,
sometimes help them uncover things that work from our own experience and from
100%.
our practice, but we don't
100%.
throw them that immediately.
Yeah, and it's knowing that balance of, and you used this term last time we spoke, was coach salting. When to bring in coach salting, where you're doing a little bit of a telling and a mentoring and advice, but at the right time, at the right place, versus in every session and all the time. I had this one client, she's like, okay, today is going to be a rough one. I'm like, okay, what role do you want me to play in this conversation today? Do you want me to be a mentor, a coach, or a consultant? She goes, be a consultant. I need to know some things. And we were talking about PMDD. So in PMDD, I'm not going to be sitting here going, oh,
what do you think?
Yeah. I'm going to be like, here's some research. Here's what I hear. Here's my personal experience.
Yes.
And then she walked away with it because of that. Then she walks away with a few knowings that she's like, okay, I'm going to go talk to my family doctor again. And now I'm going to track my cycles. Great. So she still comes to her own conclusion, but we're not attached to what we say. Mm-hmm. Where I hear some of the coaches of do this or it won't work. That also doesn't work with our community, by the way. Hint, hint, any of you listening, don't be telling the ADHD community what to do, because that's not cool either.
We can suggest different tools, and it may or may not work for them, and it may work for the person until it doesn't work.
That's right.
So that's also the power of coaching. It's like, just because this is working now or this has worked for you in the past doesn't mean it will continue to work, and it might work again. But how do you deal with those in-betweens as well? How do you regulate?
Right. That's
How do you come from a metacognitive view to know when it's not working, and you now all of a sudden start shifting?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also, the whole one solution doesn't fit all. I mean, it's common sense, but I still, from time to time, I hear that in our community too, from the coaches, the content creators, that, here's this thing, do, and it'll give you the solution. And to generalize, not every ADHD person loses their keys. I have never. Not every ADHD person is late. I was like 10 minutes late on this. I'm messaging you. Where are you now? I'm here. So it's that generalization that is out there sometimes. It's, not everybody has to take medication or take medication. Or also, if you don't poo-poo it for those that are taking it.
Exactly.
Right? Which I've seen some of this. And for me, it goes back to responsibility. Like as someone who's in this field, check in on your own. I wish there was like a responsibility checklist that people went through of, if you're doing this, and actually to that.
Well, let's make it right now. What is the responsibility checklist, Cathy? Seriously, let's put our thinking hats together. You have 20 years of coaching experience altogether. I have 20 years of coaching experience altogether. How do you feel in your mentor coaching, in your coaching coaches and clients and vice versa? You feel that coaches are responsible coaches? Yeah.
So one would be know your shit and back it up with sources. So just, and if you are your own life experience as a source, then say that based on my own life experience, I think blah, right? But at least don't confuse the reader, the audience, that this is word that, you need to be drinking coffee every morning. Like if it doesn't, like, you know what I'm saying? So know your what you're teaching, be responsible for that, but also open it up for them to go and research. By the way, I found this. What else do you think could be underneath this? So that you're constantly getting the audience, your clients, to think critically, that they don't just take your word as the word because Brooke said, because Cathy said. There should be this balance of, and let me go search it a little bit more. Maybe there's different information they'll find. So there's that one. The other would be the whole expertise thing. And I love how you brought up the whole influencer thing. I don't call myself an expert. I'm just a coach that's constantly in training, who works with a lot of people, but I'm also learning all the time. There's things that probably I've said in my
Lifelong
past
learning
episodes that I take back.
that
I'm
you,
like, oh, I no longer want to say that anymore.
right.
There's this other new evidence.
Yes.
So lifelong learning should be a thing, and do it ethically, do it properly. I don't know what else. There's probably so much more.
Don't just try to sell someone a program because you need them. I think don't become a coach because you need to be a coach.
Yeah.
Right? Become a coach because you're passionate about it, because you want to discover all the greatness in other people and yourself. Become a coach not because, and first of all, it's not a highly paid industry. Let's
No, it
just
is
put
not.
that out there. Like average coach makes around 60,000, if that. Okay.
Which is a lot of coaches.
A lot of coaches, exactly.
Yeah.
So become a coach because you know the ins and outs, and maybe you had a friend who did it and you see yourself in them and you see the impact that they've made on other people, and you want to discover that for other people as well.
Yeah.
So the becoming, and also in the doing, do your research, do the lifelong learning, but also like make sure that you as a coach are doing things from a place of want, doing things from a place of helping people, doing things from a place of integrity, and not a place of need just because you need that client.
And on that note, it was interesting, we were talking about toxic resiliency over on LinkedIn last week. And know when it's a need, then step away if you're not in it anymore for the right reasons. It's okay. Nobody's going to be like, oh, look at you walking away from this business. I get it. You've spent a lot of money probably getting the training, doing your thing. And if it doesn't work, the part that people don't understand is, or maybe they do, is not only are you a coach, you're a business owner. And if the business ownership part isn't
working for you,
yes, and making your coaching stuff icky, because I wholeheartedly believe it, just that energy translates. You're doing more damage than good to yourself, to your family, to the people that you work with. It just know when it's okay to throw in the towel and be like, you know what, I tried this. But coaching skill is a transferable skill. Then you can go back to a 9-to-5 job with all this wisdom that you have. And believe me, you'll do it better.
Yes. And you can be a leader with your coaching tool belt in your relationship, in your partnership, in how you show up for yourself on a day-to-day basis. I completely agree.
Yeah.
I noticed that so many business owners don't know how to be a business owner because they've never been taught it. So they're spinning their wheels, and then it's burning themselves out as a coach. And that's what they came to be, a coach, a contractor, right? There's plenty of books out there that talks about the difference between a contractor and a business owner. That is literally why I created the Business Coach Collective, because if you are a coach, whether you're a solopreneur or you're growing a neurodivergent coaching company, like, you need to understand integrity, the tools, when you're burning yourself out, when you're not energized, what is energizing you, and focus on the things that are energizing you, and focus on the processes and learn all those tools. So if you want to grow, you can authentically and with integrity.
And Brooke, I have so much respect for you for doing this program now. If you did it like 4 years ago, I would have been like, Brooke, what are you doing? Like you're just still hatching. But I've watched you go through the growth, and I've watched you, we've talked about how running a business and all of that stuff. So for you to do it now at this stage in your own career, kudos to you, because you're coming in with your toolkit full and with a lot of experience, right? For me, when I started doing even mentor coaching, where I mentor other coaches and we talk about coaching skills, if I had done that the first year of my graduation, I would have had no business doing that.
Mm-hmm.
because I was still coaching clients. Who am I to tell you how to coach? But now
Exactly.
today, 6 years into this, working with so many people, training coaches now at the ADD Academy, I go in with confidence about my mentor coaching because I've done the work. I've seen the experience. And now I see how my mentees are succeeding. And you got to kind of sometimes, in coaching, there's this thing. They're like, oh, it's okay as long as you're 10 steps ahead of your clients. I kind of don't buy that because sometimes you got to have had a little bit more experience, a little bit more skin in the game. Not that we tell our clients what to do, but having that backstory for ourselves, even, it helps us. There's a deeper
Yes.
understanding. I don't know if I'm
Yes.
explaining this
There
correctly.
is. And I don't think there's a problem with someone coaching straight out of coaching school, or going through coaching school, but tell the client that your
That,
prices need
yes,
to agree with your experience, right? Like you should not be charging astronomical prices for your coaching session with someone when you're fresh out of school or in school. Like that's not, you don't have that experience. And even Dr. Hallowell talks about that. Like I interviewed him. I know you interviewed him
mm-hmm.
on your podcast as well. What makes a good coach? Well, someone who can meet you where you are, who's connected and is experienced. So if you
Yeah,
don't have the experience, of course you need to get the experience by coaching people, but tell them because there are people out there that can't afford coaching and maybe those clients would benefit from the tools that you've learned as well.
100%. That's how I started my business. It was
Yeah.
$50 an hour. No, it started at $25 an hour and then $50
Oh
an hour.
my
And then I went
gosh.
up. Right. But each of those, and meet yourself where you're at. There's no shame in $50 an hour coach because I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on my training. But at the time, that was the number that rolled off my tongue with ethic, with integrity, I was comfortable with it. I showed up at my best. Unfortunately, on the other side of our business, there's the other side of coach price, the value that you have. And if you start to feel icky about what you're doing, then you're not doing it out of integrity. You're doing it because your business coach said you needed to charge
Raise your
$200.
price or
Yeah.
this. Exactly.
Which
Exactly.
then you're coaching out of nervousness. There's so much stress on you, like all of that nonsense stuff.
I think the general consensus is be true to yourself. If you as a coach also have those spidey senses, make sure you live in alignment and integrity. And if you're doing this for the money, like you're in the wrong business.
100%.
Could you get a lot of money over time? Possibly. But this is not the right business for that. You're working with people's lives here. You're transforming people's lives, and that's not something to take lightly.
Yeah, and the money part, ICF does say it's in the billions. It's a billion something industry. But like this small percentage, the difference is in corporate world, in corporate coaching. If I'm coaching an executive, the rates are so different than the general public, right? Like they won't look at you if it's not $300 and up.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, because that in
Mm-hmm.
corporate, those are the numbers. Because also
Right.
the company is paying for those coaches. There's money that's coming in. These are the levels, and it's a different style of coaching. So, but if I have a person that's just, hi, I'm ADHD and I just got diagnosed, I'm not going to be like, it's $300 an hour. It just, who's paying? They're paying out of their own pocket. And also it is not covered by benefits. So that number is skewed because the top of that chart, if you will, it's a lot of executive coaching, a lot of corporate coaching, a lot of seminars that are thousands of dollars that are influencing that. But the average industry, $65K for a coach, that's what most people are looking at.
Yeah. And remember, that doesn't include insurance and all the
Oh,
other
the business
things that you
expense.
get from
Yes.
a government job. Yeah.
Yes.
That's why you have to really love what you're doing. Bottom line.
100%. And also the one thing we were talking about responsibilities is take the responsibility of knowing when the client is no longer a right fit for you. One time I was working with this young lady and we did a few sessions together. It was great. And her eating disorder came back into the picture. And I had to
And you're not
stop
trained in
coaching.
that.
No, I like, oh my God. I was like, we need to stop now. We need to pause this. She had to go back to her therapist, do the deeper work, and come back in. And sometimes actually with coaching, you will discover things that it actually makes it even more sense to then go to your therapist and talk about it with your therapist. Because you know how sometimes you go and you're like, I don't know what we're talking about. But in a coaching conversation, like there's a lot of the theme
Have a
around
focus.
people pleasing. If that keeps coming up, great. Now you need to go talk to your therapist because it's really like affecting, there's deep rooted stuff. So having that responsibility of knowing when we got to cut the cord for a little bit, or joint partnership with the coach, the therapist, and you, and then moving forward. I think that's really important.
A lot of people who come for a discovery call will ask me, how can I see growth? How can I see progress? And one thing that is so in front of us, right, with ADHD is our working memory. We don't know unless we're writing things down or it's in front of our faces that we're making progress. Or if you have a goal on, getting this job and you get the job, right, then there's progress, right? That's a big goal. But the week to week micro changes that you were talking about, or what I call a 1%, right, action. How do you see that? And what recently I noticed, to have an ADHD client see their growth is for them to see the lessons learned and their wins, but also on a scale from 1 to 10, when they first start, where are you at in these areas, right? And evaluate that each week, them evaluate it so they can see, okay, yeah, last week I was a 1, this week I'm a 3, maybe next week I'm a 2, but the week after I'm a 4, right? So like it's moving in the right direction. And I think that in true coaching, as you mentioned, Cathy, like sometimes it's just awareness that we discover. Sometimes it's being more proactive. And I think it's really important for an ADHD client listening to write down or partner with your coach in writing down your wins and where you're at each week so you can see that growth from beginning to end.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Cathy, what other things would you like to share with the neurodivergent ADHD community who are either looking for a coach or are coaches themselves?
I think if you're looking for a coach, just even the search of finding a coach is I acknowledge that it's an exhausting task. Okay. So let's say if you've moved past that, please interview at least 3 people, 3 coaches, just so you kind of get an idea, a sense. And I know we get so excited. We're like, oh my God, I'm connecting. This is so great.
Yeah, it's a great fit.
I encourage my discovery calls. I'm like, please go interview somebody else too. I don't want to be the only one that sets the criteria for you, because what if the next person says something just a little different and it clicks a little different? And so please do interview at least 3 people. Bring them in. The criteria, again, if you're sitting in dysfunction, it's not about getting a coach. For the love of God, I see what you see on social media, the TikToks and all of that. Oh, let me go work with a coach. Have that heart to heart with yourself. Am I sitting in complete dysfunction that I can't even get out of bed? It's been 2 weeks, all of that stuff. It's therapy conversation. If you are sitting in that stream of I'm functioning, but it needs a bit of tweaking, I've hit a tipping point, because for me, that was it. There was a tipping point. Then bring on a coach, bring on a thinking partner, but know you've got the tools. They're just going to have to work it with you. The rule of 3, please get somebody to kind of like body double with somebody to go, here's what I'm thinking. Check their training. The more extensive the training, the better. Please check that they're not guaranteeing, like guarantee that you're going to manage your ADHD, guarantee that your ADHD is going to go away. I see the ads lately, cure your ADHD. What the F is that? Like cure left-handedness? No, I don't think so.
Oh my gosh. I have so much more to say about that, but for another episode.
So make sure like what they're saying, it should be a resounding, oh my God, this is exactly it. Like the clients that say the yes to me, it's light bulbs go off in that 30 minutes that we discuss. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Move on to the next coach. You don't owe them anything. It's just a conversation. It's okay to say no to people. I know we like to be nice and all of that stuff. And for the coaches that are getting into the industry, I know that you coming from a place of, I want to help, I want to support, this looks so good, this aligns with who I am. Have a conversation with a coach, actually, to talk it out loud, not with a loved one, with a friend or whatever. Actually hire a coach to say, I'm in the middle of a career transition, so that they can be your thinking partner to decide on your next step. So that when you do make the decision, it's like head, heart, gut aligned, that you know exactly what you're walking into.
Yes.
So that's the biggest one for me, is if you're in that cusp of, should I become a coach of anything? Get a coach yourself.
Get coached.
So you can talk it through.
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Cathy, thank you for being on Successful with ADHD.
Thank you.
For those who are interested in learning more about your coaching, where can they find you?
They can find me on readysetchoose.com. Ready, Set, Choose. It's all about conscious choices, people.com. I do workshops. I've got the Quantum Thinkers group coaching and a whole bunch of other stuff. So anytime you go to my website, you'll see the latest things that I'm up to.
Amazing. And I'll put that in the show notes as well. Thanks again. And I'm sure you'll be back very soon to continue on our integrity conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Successful with ADHD. I hope it helped you on your journey. And if you need any additional support for you or a loved one with ADHD, feel free to reach out to us at coachingwithbrooke.com and all social media platforms at Coaching with Brooke. And remember, it's Brooke with an E. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.